What's going on, fam? Welcome back to the Dr. Eric K. Coleman Show. I am your host, Dr. Eric K. Coleman. As we move along in the month of January, we are talking about building new relationships. We are talking about starting over, rebranding ourselves, reshaping our thinking, focusing on ourselves and not the other person. Things to avoid when beginning new relationships. And what we were going to be diving in today is when we are developing these new relationships, understanding the things to avoid. What questions do we need to ask? We've already done the work on ourselves to figure out what questions we need to ask of ourselves to figure out how we are showing up and engaging in relationships. But once we have got a grip on that, now it's time to understand how to best ask questions of people that we are wanting or anticipating to engage in conversation with. This will be a conversation today that is anchored by Miss Amber Wright. This is a TED Talk. Before we get into that, please, ma'am, please, sir, do the housekeeping item of the day. If you have not, please like, share, and most of all, subscribe to the channel so that you will be up to date with all content pertaining to this platform. Let's go ahead and get into the clip of the day, and we will provide commentary along the way.
As many parents of school-aged children can probably relate to, I was once lost in the land of good with my 9-year-old daughter. When she started elementary school, I was excited for her, for us, as she was embarking on this new journey. And every day with that excitement in my eyes, I'd pick her up and I'd say, "So, how was your day today?" And without fail,
I've been there. I've done that. That's the most aggravating response, especially when you really want to know the details. It was good. I've fallen short on asking the wrong question.
And then I'd say, "Okay, what was good about it?" "I don't know, it was just good." Naturally, I wanted to know more. I was so curious about what was happening in her little life. How was she liking her teacher? And was she getting along with her friends? And what was her favorite subject? And looking back on it now, I don't know how I thought I was going to get all of that by simply asking, "How was your day?" But ultimately, I was in search of an opportunity to connect with her. An invitation of sorts to join her on this journey of big girl school, as we called it, that she was embarking on. But I wanted to do that in a way that didn't feel like a daily interrogation. So I sat with it for a while, and then one day it all just kind of changed. We are driving home, and I say, "Tell me, what was the best part of your day today?" She said, "Oh, my best part?" I said, "Yeah, your best part. What made you smile the hardest today?" She stops and she thinks about it, and she says, "Oh, I know. The best part of my day was getting to play handball after school with my friends." "Really?" I said, "I didn't know you knew how to play handball." She said, "Oh, yeah, it's a fun game. You throw this ball and you do like this." Now she's giving me instructions from the back seat on how to play handball, not knowing that her own mama played handball, tetherball, and dodgeball when I was a kid. And I share that with her, and she's so surprised. She can't believe it. And we have a short but riveting conversation on after-school activities. And that kind of became a new thing between us, and it's something that we still do to this day. And I asked her, "What was the best part of your day today?" And it has ranged from eating cinnamon rolls in the cafeteria to practicing violin to going to the computer lab, which she loves to do more than anything.
And I'm going to stop it there for a second. I'm pretty sure we can all attest to, especially if you have children or work with children, that is the one question when you say, "So how was your day today?" And they give you good, fine, okay, it was all right. And my wife, I've communicated before on this platform that she's an educator as well. I'm an educator of higher education, college level, and she is an educator for the K-12 round. And I would do that a lot of asking my boys, again, who are 19 now, going on 20 and 14 years old, how was your day? How are you doing? And I would get so frustrated because I would get the one word response, and Nikki would tell me, babe, you got to ask better questions. If you really want to connect with what's going on with it, throughout the day, ask more pointed questions, and be specific in what you want to know. Frame it as such, and try to talk about something that they're interested in, not necessarily what you are interested in. And that's how you're going to get the door open. Now, this is not a cookie cutter approach, because Lord knows, even when I try to do that, sometimes teenagers in general just don't want to talk. So it's sometimes it's hit or miss, but I have learned the structure, the math, and the science behind it of how to ask pointed questions. Thus, I'm able to do that in all relationships, even at work. You got to be able to ask the right question to get the right response from your team.
And just like that invitation I had been longing for into her life, I finally received, all by asking a better question. And it's that interaction that I consider to be the path to connection. Real connection with real human beings through real conversation. As a communication expert and certified life coach, my life's work is built around this idea that the quality of your life is directly influenced by your ability to communicate with confidence and with clarity. Part of being a good communicator requires that you are an active listener. Part of active listening requires that you ask questions. But I want us to go deeper. I want us to ask good questions, the juicy kind, that can help us go deeper faster with the people in our lives. In the 15th edition of their textbook, Looking Out, Looking In, authors Adler and Proctor state that questioning helps us to do more than just gather information like data and facts and details. It can also help us learn what people are thinking, how they're feeling, and in some cases what they want. And that I consider to be the secret sauce to developing relationships that add value to our lives and fulfill us.
That's interesting. She stated that the importance of asking pointed and deep and meaningful questions. I'm actually back in school now, getting my third master's degree, and this one is going to be in industrial and organizational psychology. Just what she said. How can I ask the right question to tap into what you are really thinking and feeling? I know I need to grow in that area, especially again on my job. I'm working with a era now of workers to where if it doesn't necessarily feel good, or if they not quote unquote vibing with it, I still don't understand what vibing means. But if they're not vibing with it, then they don't want to do it. But my generation, we did it because we had to. There was no if, and, or buts about it. It was what you needed to do to fend for yourself, to make some money, to bring income into the household, to provide for yourself. But there are so many other avenues now in this day and age. When we're talking about social media, influencing content creators, platforms such as this, these are lucrative business models, work models, but there's a lot of work that goes into it, and that's the other side of the coin, the work ethic behind it, as to where now we are living in a microwave society to where you just snap your fingers and you want it now, you don't want to work for it. Or people want to be sensations and make it to the top overnight. They don't want to have that delayed gratification. And when I'm, speaking about this whole idea of how do I pull out of people greatness, my employees, how do I get you to that point? How do I get you to buy into the idea of it's going to take work to get there? Talk to me, open up, express to me what you're thinking, what you're feeling. What is your viewpoint on this? I want to know those things so I know how to be an effective and a better leader, so I can do what I need to do to grow myself, to be able to coach, train, mentor, and develop you as a person, as an employee, as someone who's trying to move along in their career. But yeah, it's quite interesting when she's talking about asking those pointed questions. How can I tap in to get into your brain to figure out where you're coming from? That can be a difficult process.
To be clear, I define a better question simply as one that demonstrates genuine curiosity, but without being too intrusive.
There you go.
We can strike that
genuine
balance.
curiosity.
Can shatter the perceptions that we have of other people, and that in some cases people might have of us. Take my former student Khalid, for example. I was an adjunct professor in communication studies for about 8 years. And over the course of that time, I realized that a good number of my students had never had a black teacher before in their lives ever, let alone a black female professor in college. So it wasn't lost on me that by me showing up in all of my glory on the first day of class would impact how some of them perceived me, and in some cases how they experienced me, as was the case with Khalid, a young black male. This night in class, we are brainstorming persuasive speech topic ideas, and it's his turn to share with me what he's going to give his speech on. So he comes to my desk and he pops down in the chair, and I said, so tell me, what are you thinking about your topic for your persuasive speech? And he says, I think I'm gonna do mine on recycling. And I said, oh, okay. Tell me more about that. Why recycling? And he says, because everybody should recycle. And I said, yeah, you are right about that. But tell me more. Is this something that you're really interested in? Are you really passionate about recycling? And he says, I mean, not really, I guess. So clearly, he wasn't sure what he wanted to give his speech on. So we take a moment, and I notice that he's wearing a maroon-colored hoodie with the letters TDE printed on it in white. And I recognize that to be the logo of Top Dog Entertainment, the record label that Pulitzer Prize-winning rapper Kendrick Lamar is signed to. And this sparks an idea in me, and so I ask him, do you think that you could write a speech that argues that TDE is the most important label to West Coast rap since Death Row? And he looks at me and says, I'm sorry, what? I begin to repeat the question, and he said, nah, I heard you, but how do you know that? How do you know what TDE is? And I said, oh, well, first of all, it's on your sweatshirt. And second, I listen to hip hop. I love rap. Love Kendrick. You know, don't kill my vibe. He couldn't believe it. His whole countenance changes, and he smiles wide, and he says, see, Miss Amber, that's why I like you, because you old and you young at the same time. I know.
You old and you young at the same time. But that was really good. She was very observant. And I tell that to people all the time. A lot of times it's not about what people are saying out of their mouths. It's their body language. It's the nonverbals. And so that was awesome that she was able to pick up something because she was, quote unquote, being relevant with the culture, relevant with the time. And she was able to identify things that potentially might be of attraction to the student, to where there might be something that they may be more passionate towards writing. So that was really good. That was a really good example of what she just used here, to be personable, to be engaging, to be intentional and thoughtful, to try to open up the mind of the young person.
I've never had a professor like you before. And I just smile and say, thanks, I think. But in that moment, a perception was shattered. And a connection was made. We weren't just teacher and student, we were two hip-hop fans. And we talked about everything from Snoop to Tupac to Kendrick. And I'll never forget the look on Khalid's face as he was walking back to his desk, brimming with new ideas on how he could possibly construct that argument. Because it was the face of someone who had just felt seen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the benefit that comes from asking better questions. I could have left it at recycling, but by taking it a step further, we were able to engage in a more thoughtful way.
Yeah.
Some of you might hear this and say, okay, girl, this just sounds like small talk, which I already don't like doing. Now you want me to do more of it, but...
And I think this actually goes in realm of this this terminology of Socratic discussions. When you are going deeper and you're diving into the unknowns of a conversation, you're just not leaving it there. If somebody says, oh, well, I love pizza. Okay, I see that you love pizza. Well, what pizza do you love? I love pepperoni. Okay, well, what type of pepperoni do you like? Have you been to an authentic restaurant? What restaurants have you gone to compare the different types of pizzas or the pepperonis? Is it really the pepperoni that you like about the pizza, or is it the crust? Do you like thin, stuffed crust, deep dish? Do you know that in different states or parts of the regions of the world or whatever, depending upon the water, it changes the flavor and the texture? So when you are digging deeper, like, what do you like to eat with your pizza? And this conversation can just grow and grow and grow and grow. And this is what she's talking about when you are taking a conversation much deeper than just at face value of what type of pizza do you like?
Asking people questions? I don't think so. And that's not exactly what I'm saying. Asking better questions isn't about meaningless chatter. It's actually quite the opposite. It's about communicating with intention with the people around us. We see this play out in our romantic relationships, for example. A 2013 study found that couples rate communication as the most important deciding factor to relationship success, more than sex and passion. And to me, when we can get good at learning how to engage in a thoughtful way around us, that's when we can really see a change happen in our relationships.
And that's what we talk about in chapter 6 of the book, Paradigm, Thinking Differently About Relationships. Chapter 6 talks about productive communication. We tend to tread over that. Relationship building is rooted in communication and collaboration. And this is from a 2014 insert from Fuchs and Pruska, to where I also lay out in the book the different styles of communication. We got verbal, nonverbal, written, listening, and visual. And when we're engaging in these, what she's talking about now, romantic relationships, we got to be able to really understand what type of communicator the person we are and the person that we are in relationship with. And so again, I would highly recommend, you pick up the book. I promise you it will bless you, because I point out some really critical things here in the material to showcase how important communication is. There are 4 questions that I pose here. Number 1 is, meet the other person where they are. You may be a great communicator. However, if you do not take the time to understand your partner, you will miss the mark all the time. Number 2, be open to change. You may have grown up in an environment that talks about everything, or flip side of the coin is growing up in an environment that embodies everything and hold it close to the chest. Be the example for the other person and mimic what you desire pertaining the relationship. Number 3, show common grace. Not everyone is going to respond in desired fashion, nor will they change overnight. Effective and productive communication takes time to cultivate and achieve. Remember that there are attributes about you that you still need to work on. Again, talking about that inner work that we have to do. Don't belittle or shame someone for their deficiency. Be their encourager and champion. And number 4, practice with an open mind. From experience, I can attest to the fact that depending upon how someone responds to me when I decide to communicate my real feelings, emotions, and ideas, it is a very big component and determinant if I will be willing to share more of myself and be vulnerable. I encourage you to be open, slow to speak, and quick to listen. So I believe this is really embodying what she's talking about right now. So let's go ahead and continue.
So think about that for a second and let's merge these two ideas. How would you feel if your partner, the one you have, the one you want, or the one you had, on a regular basis looked you in the eye and said, how can I show you that you're a priority in my life?
Mm-hmm.
Or how does this relationship contribute to your happiness? Wouldn't you feel seen by that person and appreciated and loved? Don't you feel that way now just by hearing me say that out loud? And we're not even in a relationship together. That's the gift that we all have the power to give the people in our lives when we train ourselves to be thoughtfully curious. To further demonstrate what I mean, let's play a quick round of Ask This, Not That. Say you're at a networking event and you meet somebody new. Instead of asking, so what do? You can ask, what about your work inspires you? Or say you're on the phone with a friend who's going through a hard time. Instead of, how are you hanging in there? You can ask, how can I support you in this moment? I see this in my line of work as a consultant and trainer. At the start of every engagement, I ask the client, what does success look like for you when all of this is said and done? Gives them a chance to think about their goals and articulate them to me, and then we can have a conversation about how we can work together to meet those goals. And I feel like it's a much more effective question than, how can I help? Now, this whole thing of asking better questions can take a little bit of time and practice, but you can get it. I believe in you.
And that's real right there. I just want to stop the clip there because she actually did a wonderful segue into what I wanted to end this conversation with today. On page 52 of my book, I share these words. Effective communication is not a skill that is learned overnight. She just stated that. We must understand that situations happen where we are presented the opportunity to put into practice all that we have learned. Becoming an effective listener and communicator is not just going to be imparted upon you. It all comes down to the fact that if you desire to be a better communicator, you will be, with work and time. During time of communication, think of these few things. And I list 6 things here. And then I'm going to end this with a quote that is a summation of chapter 6. What message do I want to communicate? How can I say this in a way that will be received effectively? Do I need to write it or say it? What is the best time to have this conversation? That's a critical one right there. When is the best time to have this conversation? And I know during some training sessions with people and couples, this was a big one because one of the parties would always say, well, when I try to talk to them, they don't want to listen. Or they think that, I'm not a priority to them, and everything else comes before me. But come to find out, you're trying to talk to this person when they're watching the game on television, when you know what time the game starts, or when you are trying to talk to the person when their favorite soap opera or reality television show comes on and you know that they're preoccupied. Now, that's not fair. You know what time these people are, what we were talking about at our on the last episode of understanding boundaries and understanding, people's time in their space. And when you know that they are trying to check out or have some me time or some personal time, you know when they're going to do that. And so for you to come in there and try to talk to somebody when you know that they are preoccupied, but then you want to feel justified and say, see, you never listen to me. What, your game is more important to me? No, it's not. But you, adult, know certain times to when people are not mentally and emotionally and physically available. That's just mean on your part to try to make yourself feel better because you want to go interrupt somebody during the time you know that they're busy, but you want to feel justified in your emotions and try to get an I gotcha, aha, see, I told you moment. So we got to really be thinking about that. Is this the best time to have this conversation? Are you even in the mental space to have this conversation? Or to spark these questions that you want to pose on somebody and you want to know the answers to. Number 5, have I evaluated my perception first, and am I approaching the situation with a clear head? Secondly, so when you want to start a conversation with somebody, are you clear-headed? Do you know where you want to go in this conversation? Do you have an end game? Not just to be, as Amber talked about here, just haphazardly, but there's got to be intentionality behind it. And number 6, will I intentionally be fair during the conversation, and will I show grace? Just because you might be at a stage in your life to know how to effectively communicate, other people may not be, or vice versa. So we got to show people grace. And the culminating quote here for chapter 6 is, the effect of unproductive communication is lack of buy-in of the relationship, which stifles growth, trust, openness, and vulnerability. If we really want to build better communications or better connections, better relationships, we got to be able to be effective communicators. We got to ask the right questions at the right time. We got to read the room. We have to be intentional. We have to practice this thing. It's not something that's just going to happen by osmosis or organically. You got to put the work in and the time and the sweat equity. And when we do this personal work on ourselves, we can better engage in our relationships, no matter what kind of relationship it is. Will be better for our communities, our society, our neighborhoods, our nation, our country, and we can take this thing worldwide. So until next time, fam, continue to think differently about relationships. Peace.